posting this video today because May 5th is the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Native Women and Girls. The missing person case of Janice Marie Hannigan is the oldest active investigation on the Washington State Patrol's list of missing Indigenous persons. Janice went missing from Wapato, Washington on December 24th, 1971. Her case is 50 years old. Welcome to Investigating the Northwest. This channel is dedicated to exploring the mysteries, locations, urban legends, and history of the Pacific Northwest. Janice's disappearance has been a mystery for the state of Washington for over 50 years. Can you help solve it? Janice was born on March 22, 1955. She was born to parents Martin James Hannigan Sr. and Linda Sally George Hannigan. Martin and Linda were well known in the community, and Linda would often sponsor local dances aimed at giving the young kids and teenagers something positive to do. Janice was 16 at the time that she was last seen. She was 5 foot tall, 105 pounds, black hair, brown eyes, and has a mole on her chin. Janice was a sophomore at White Swan High School on the Yakima Indian Reservation. She enjoyed cooking, beadwork, and watching football. In 1971, the year she went missing, she was a candidate for the Queen of the Intertribal Veterans Day ceremonial to be held in Toppenish in November 1971. 4 other ladies were also competing for the honor. In October 1971, they were all featured in a newspaper article about the event. All the girls were dressed in full tribal regalia. The title of queen would be bestowed on the lady who brought in the most ticket sales to the event. The queen would get the honor of wearing the event's beautiful beadwork crown. Janice was the oldest of 7 children. Her parents had recently separated. She was the only one to stay with her father, Martin Hannigan, near Hera, Washington. It was said she likely stayed to take care of him and the house. As the oldest child, this likely fell as her responsibility. Her 6 siblings stayed with their mother near Buena, Washington. On December 21, 1971, Janice was admitted to the hospital for treatment of bruising and injuries on her head and chest. The injuries were concerning enough that she stayed for 3 days before being released. This is all we know about her injuries and her stay there. Quote, "The patient was admitted to the hospital with multiple contusions around the head. Has shown no evidence of any headache or loss in the level of consciousness," Dr. H.D. Buckley wrote in his discharge summary, which doesn't identify the hospital or say anything about the cause of Janice's injuries. The contused areas show the swelling to be receding. End quote. She was released on December 24th, Christmas Eve, and was never seen again. Where did Janice go after she left the hospital? I tried to look further into this hospital stay. Dr. H.D. Buckley was a local surgeon assigned to Wapato, but it doesn't say which hospital. In fact, it seems there was no actual hospital in Wapato. It appears that Toppenish Community Hospital would have been the closest formal hospital to Wapato. It opened its doors on July 2nd, 1951. It is now known as Astria Toppenish Hospital at 502 West 4th Avenue, Toppenish, Washington. I'm assuming she stayed at a formal hospital rather than a smaller clinic because she stayed there for 3 days. Multiple agencies, including NamUs, list her last seen date as March 1971, but she was confirmed to have been seen in November 1971 at the Intertribal Ceremonial. The Yakima Nation Police Department reports her deceased on the same date, but this is also incorrect. Quote, "According to a Bureau of Indian Affairs missing person report from 1975, Janice had gone with her father to a basketball game in Lewiston, Idaho, and went missing from there. It says that happened in February 1971. Perhaps Janice was gone for a little while and returned." End quote. So the implication here is that Janice was in Idaho with her father and went missing for a brief time. That's possibly why many of the reporting bureaus are listing the last seen date as March 1971, because she was reported missing around that time. But she was clearly documented alive in October, November, and December of 1971. Initially, investigators felt that Janice may have run away because she was upset about her parents' divorce. Then they shifted their investigation towards Janice's father. If Janice went missing after a trip with her father in February, might she also have had an altercation with him in December and left? Or worse? However, Janice's sister, Trudy Clark, has stated emphatically that she doesn't believe he has anything to do with it. As a side note, you'll hear me reference Trudy quite often because she continued to follow up with police, media, and put up flyers over many years during her search for Janice. There were many sightings reported and proved to be false, and many rumors floated around that gave the family false hope that would soon be dashed. On July 21st, 2019, remains were found on an island about a half-mile west of the Donald Wapato Bridge on the Yakima River, but the remains were eventually determined to be of a man. Her remains were considered and compared to many Jane Does over time, but none have matched Trudy's familial DNA so far. So what are the theories about what happened to Janice that night? The first theory is that she was picked up by someone after she left the hospital. If we assume she was treated at the Toppenish Community Hospital, it would have been approximately 11 miles to Hera and her father's home, and approximately 4.5 miles to Buena, where her mother lived. Even a 4.5-mile walk will be a long hike while injured and during the cold weather of late December. Maybe somebody offered her a ride. If this is the case, she could have been abducted. The second theory is, what if Janice just wanted to leave? She was acting as a caregiver for her father, was possibly being abused by someone, and apparently no one picked her up from the hospital on Christmas Eve. What if she was tired of all of the responsibility and abuse and just left? She accepted a ride from someone and just left town. If this is the case, she could still be alive today. The third theory is that she had been beaten up by someone and hospitalized for it. After she was released from the hospital, perhaps her abuser found her again and took her. Janice's mother, Linda, had questioned some of Janice's previous boyfriends, but they didn't offer any useful information. Law enforcement had been looking into Janice's father, Martin. However, Janice's sister, Trudy, does not believe Janice's abuser was their father. We still don't know to this day how Janice got so injured on December 21st. The fourth and final theory has been offered by Trudy Clark, Janice's sister. From a recent article, quote, she believes Janice might be buried on land near the family home outside Hera, on land she and her siblings leased to a local farmer. At the old home site, we had a burn area and an outside toilet. That was way back there on the property, along with a well, Clark said. She has tried and continues to try to get authorities to walk the land with cadaver dogs, but also hopes the farmer could help. I don't know how far down you dig when you're planting, but I do know that where the pumpkins are planted on the top of the hill is where our home was. She wrote to a farmer in October 2017 asking him to dig a little deeper if he wouldn't mind. We had a cellar under the house and an outhouse closer to the downhill, end quote. Which of these theories do you think is most likely in your opinion? This is the section where I venture into my own personal thoughts and questions about the case. So far, I have presented what has been publicly available from verifiable sources. In this section, this is just my own musings. The fourth theory leaves me a bit confused. Trudy felt that Janice's remains could be buried on her father's land, but at the same time, she didn't believe her father had anything to do with it. That leaves me confused. Why Would she feel that Janice was buried on her father's land? Who would have buried her there? Also, if Janice were buried on her father's land, wouldn't this have been noticed in the weeks after her disappearance? However, setting all that aside, the quote said that Trudy and her siblings leased the land to a local farmer. If this is still the case, Janice's family could freely allow people to search that land. It's still their property. Trudy had failed to get authorities to search the land with cadaver dogs, but today, family could still get in touch with volunteer canine teams to perform a search. Snohomish County Volunteer Search and Rescue has a canine team that includes dogs for human remains detection. Cascadia Search Dogs is also an option. If the volunteer route doesn't pan out, they could also start a GoFundMe to raise funds to hire a private company with cadaver dogs. I truly feel that this particular theory could easily be confirmed or debunked. I also feel like there is so much information missing surrounding the time of her disappearance and her stay at the hospital. She had a large family. Her mother, sister, and now her niece continued to search for answers over the last 50 years. The questions I have are, did her family even know she was in the hospital? Did they visit? If they visited, did she tell them what happened? I'm assuming the answer to all of those questions is no. Then finally, why didn't anyone pick her up from the hospital on Christmas Eve? Now, I'm not trying to place any blame or burden on the family. It is very possible that Janice wanted to keep this incident private and never told anyone. And if that's the case, it makes me sad that she was beaten, battered, and left to recover in the hospital all by herself. In 2022, both of her parents are now deceased. Her father, Martin, passed away in 1989. Her mother, Linda, passed in 2001. They are laid to rest in the family plot in Toppenish Creek Cemetery near White Swan. One of her sisters, Trudy Clark, as we've talked about Trudy before, has taken charge of continuing the search for Janice. She had only been 8 years old when Janice disappeared, but in 2014, she reignited the fire of Janice's investigation. Trudy submitted her DNA to NamUs in hopes they could expedite identification when potential remains are discovered. Sadly, Trudy passed away on December 23, 2018, nearly 47 years to the date that Janice was last seen. One of Janice's nieces, Tashina Thomas, has taken up this mantle and keeps Janice's investigation in the public eye. On a side note, in other heartbreaking news for this family, one of Trudy Clark's nieces was the victim of homicide in 2017. Linda Dave, then 39, was found shot to death in the water under a bridge near Toppenish. Linda wasn't officially identified until a year later, and her death is still an open investigation. I feel there is someone still alive that has more information about what happened to Janice. This is the time to speak up, even if you feel the information is insignificant. It's so vital to speak up before it's too late. The missing person case of Janice Marie Hannigan is the oldest active investigation on the Washington State Patrol's list of missing Indigenous persons. Those with any information are asked to call the Yakima County Sheriff's Office at 509-574-2500. Her case number is 17C00300. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Janice's case. It may be a 50-year-old case, but there is still hope that answers and closure can be provided for her family. Also, if you're interested in learning about the mysteries of the Pacific Northwest, of exploring fascinating locations and discovering local legends, please do subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to receive an email when a new video is released.